Hello, thank you for watching this. It's an honor for me that you're watching this, and I thank you again. Last week I presented my theory on what happened to Lisa Ann Fron and Chris Kremmers, and I just wanted to have a quick update to that because in that video I said that I thought it was likely that Chris Kremmers and Lisa Ann Fron, they actually made it off the trail on April 1st, but because at the time there were witnesses, but those witnesses had been questioned, and people really questioned what the accuracy of what they said. But the big thing is that the cell phone records, the cell phones did not connect to a tower on April 1st. So without connecting to a tower, that makes you think that they actually didn't make it off the trail, because if they made it off the trail, then they would be in a place where their signal would connect to a tower. So by being off limits, by having no coverage, that leads one to believe, well, they were still on the trail. So back to April 1st, I believe that Lisa Ann Fron and Chris Kremmers, and I think this is very important because some people just think that they continue to be adventurers, and they just kept on going longer and longer and longer until they got lost or it got dark. And I think the supplies they brought on the trip, their lack of many supplies, and their clothing, it really shows us it shows us their mindset and what they were mentally prepared to walk. And I don't think that they really would have walked too much further than what they kind of had mentally agreed to in the beginning of the walk. And we kind of know what they mentally agreed to by how they were dressed and the supplies they had. I mean, they had no intention of spending the night in the jungle. No intention of that. So I believe that they started the trail and they were lightly dressed, not much water, not, snacks maybe, and just not much supplies. And they go to the summit. Perhaps that was their end goal right there, was the summit. But they made the summit in pretty good time, so they figured, well, we'll go a little bit further. We'll go, we'll keep going. Maybe they thought that they would try to go to the waterfall. But anyway, there's one picture, and it's the last picture that we have on day one, and that's about an hour away from where the summit to the trail is. And I believe soon after that picture was taken, Lisa Ann Fron and Chris Kremmers, they started to head back. And they started to head back, and they went missing. And I believe they went missing because of foul play. I believe that and this wasn't something where someone was stalking them, because there would have been more 911 calls or 112 or 122, I forget the Dutch number, but there would have been, if someone's stalking you, you're going to be pretty frantic and trying to reach emergency services. Well, that just wasn't the case with their phones, which leads me to believe that either someone came up to them and they didn't view that person as a threat, and that person turned into a threat, or someone just came on them really quick. Now, the idea that this trail, see, you can't have it both ways. Some people say, well, this trail is, hardly anyone's on this trail, and because anyone's on it, if they were lost, they wouldn't have been found, and it makes sense that no one would have found them. Well, other people say, well, they couldn't have been abducted because there's too many people on the trail. Well, I think there's a lot of in-between ground here. Yes, this trail was taken on a daily on a daily basis, but this was not a busy trail. I mean, there easily could have been a 10, 15, 20-minute pocket, especially when nightfall is coming on and the trail is, less active, when they could have been subject to foul play. Now, I personally believe that it was probably pretty quick that someone overtook them, and I believe someone had been stalking them and they just didn't realize it. Or, someone, look, in a small town, if you live in a small town, or if you live in a touristy town, and you have people coming from all over, the locals, many times locals can kind of pay attention to the guests, especially people that come to the town that stick out. And I'm not going to be going to details, but Lisa Ann Fron and Chris Kremmers, they would have stuck out in that Panama town. And I can see where there'd be certain very psychopathic, sick men that would have kept track of where they were. And I believe, people knew that they started the trail, and I believe someone was waiting for them at a place. Was it, probably wasn't the summit. It probably was a place of that person's choosing where the path was narrow, and I believe they were overtaken quickly. Now, is it possible that they were coaxed away? That someone said, "Hey, you're coming on this trail. I want to show you something else. I want to show you my house. I want to show you a waterfall. I want to show you a garden. I want to show you this really beautiful picture." Yeah, they could have been coaxed away. I don't believe that though. I believe in the stalking version and the quick attack because there's really no room for error with the emergency calls. There's such a lack of emergency calls. And just right off the bat, when I see the emergency call records, which you can look at it, they made like two emergency calls the first day, might have been three, two or three the second. The missing theory, and they just got lost, and that's how they died. That just does not make sense based on the phone records. You would have been frantic if you're not prepared to be in the wilderness, and you had to spend one night there. I mean, you're going to try 100 times. Let me tell you something. I go for I go for hikes a lot. And when you go for a hike and you have your cell phone with you, there'll be some times when you have your phone and it shows that you're out of service, and then you walk 10 steps more and you see this little bar. Sometimes I've actually had my phone show that I was out of service, and actually the call did go through. Now, it may not have lasted very long, but it actually did go through. So my point is that no matter what those bars said about service, if you're scared, you're going to be just trying and trying and trying and trying, and they weren't doing that. I mean, you would try here, and then you might walk 10 The lack of calls speaks volumes. Now, I know this is a touchy issue with the people that believe that the lost theory and they just went lost. I know that this is a touchy issue, but I think this alone, and of course the way the pelvic bone was found, that just totally crushes the lost gone missing theory. They were abducted. Now, where were they abducted? They were abducted on the trail. Now, how did it happen? Well, we don't know how it happened. My personal view is, I believe as I said, Chris Kremmers and Fron, they probably stuck out in Panama. They were different fair skinned than many people in Panama. Not everyone, but many. They were from Europe. If someone from China or something came to my town, they would look different. And when people look different, you kind of remember them, and you kind of remember your mind kind of keeps track of them more. Not the average person that lives in your town, but someone new. And I believe that there's probably quite a few people that knew Chris Kremmers and Liz Anfron were going on that trail, and someone was waiting for them and took them. Now, if there was someone that they didn't view as a threat, and they would have gone off the trail, kind of coaxed off the trail and said, "Hey, this is just going to take 10 minutes. Yeah, that could happen. That's possible." But one point I wanted to address, one more point, is the trafficking and the cartel. I don't believe those were involved. Chris Kremmers and Lisa Ann Fron, they were dead, and we had their pelvic bone. I mean, how do you survive your pelvic bone? So, and all those bones, if you're trying to abuse and manipulate someone long term, you're not going to take their leg off. So they were killed, and I'm sorry for those that imagery, but they were killed. Someone didn't kill them in order to make profit, or they would have kept them alive. They were killed by a psychopath who who I believe saw someone that they thought was they saw people they were attracted to, and they weren't right in the head, and they went after him, and they didn't want to get caught. So after they did what they wanted to do, they killed them, and then they staged a cover up. I believe the phone records, and I've said this in a couple of videos, like going on and off your phone, like, kind of like clockwork, like 2 times a day, checking for cell signal. To me, that's like someone that lives somewhere else, and he's going someplace where there's no cell signal, just to use the phone, just so some people think that the phone is active, because if the phone's active, when it's found, people will think Chris Kremmers of Lacey Ann Fron did it. But see, the usage of the phone, to me, that that's an abductor who has the phone, who's trying to set up the situation for someone else. Friends, if Lacey Ann Fron and Chris Kremmers had their phone, they would have, and the way they were dressed, they would have been in desperation mode that first night. They would have been in desperation mode their second night. They would have been in desperation mode that third night. I mean, really, check their cell phone activity. Check the calls that they had. I mean, when you're desperate, even when it shows no signal, you're going to try to make that call. And the absence of calls, to me, that shows that someone else had their phone. And, they were, to me, they were trying to paint the picture that, they already had it planned in their mind that they, in case someone got their phone, it looked like Chris Kremmers and Lacey Ann Fron still had it. This was not a crime for, I don't believe this was a crime for profit. This was a crime to, it was sadistic, it was horrible, and you know what I'm saying. So anyway, thank you for watching this, and please, if you have something to add, or if there's something I didn't do a very good job of, or I didn't do a very good job with most of this video, but if there's something I really, really didn't do a good job of, please let me know. Anyway, thank you very much. God bless you.